Welcome to Celebrating Act 2. Celebrating Act 2 is the user manual for the second half of your life.
Welcome back to Celebrating Act 2. We have with us today Dr. Liz Lyster, hormone expert, Dr. Liz Lyster, MD, hormone expert. And we're here to discuss what today, John?
Well, Liz, I have a question about aging. You can tell from the gray hair that I'm concerned with aging. And because you're a hormone expert and because our website and YouTube channel is celebrating Act Two, the second half of your life, your Act Two, it came to mind that hormone therapy might either advance aging or delay aging. Does So the question I have for you is, does hormone therapy have any effect really on aging?
I can give you a clear answer to that question.
Great.
Yes. The answer is yes, it does.
Yeah, but is it good or bad?
And that
In a
finishes
good way.
that
In
finishes
in a
that
good way.
finishes this segment with a simple yes. It does. And John,
Okay, we're done. No.
yep.
Okay.
The
Right.
shortest
So,
segment ever, but that's
all
good
right.
news. Explain.
I'm going to explain. I'm going to give you the brief rundown. Basically, once we hit our teenage years and our bodies start to get active hormonally, the levels go up, way up. And when we're young and we're in our early 20s and all through our 20s, we have these wonderful levels of hormones flowing through our bodies, all the way from our hair and our brain and our skin, all the way down on our bodies. Everything is where it's supposed to be. Things that are up are supposed to stay up, and things that are supposed to stay down.
Hey,
Okay.
keep it clean.
And that's how it goes when we're young in our teens and 20s. And that's because that's when we have our highest levels of all of the hormones that go flowing through our bodies. And things start to change in our 30s, typically. For some people, it's younger. A lot, we should talk another time about endocrine disruptors, all the kinds of things that are out there in our world that disrupt those hormones. But for the most part, younger people have these high levels of hormones. And most of us can think back to that time. Remember, we were 20, early 20s. You can stay out late, stay up all night, party all night. Okay, people who can remember that, any of our listeners that can remember those days. And then the next day, you're fine. You go to work, you go to class, you do what you got to do, and you feel okay, right? And that's what those vigorous levels of all those hormones allow us to do. I kind of like get excited just thinking about it. And then we get this decline over the rest of our lives, really. And then of course women go through a time, usually average age is 51 in the United States, where they go through a real sudden drop off in hormones, and that's where they get the more commonly known symptoms. But all of us, women and men, go through this decline of these hormone levels, and that's when we start to see the onset of illnesses. We start to see the onset of cognitive issues. We start to feel more tired, and all of this is related to hormone balance.
So if
You know,
a new patient comes to you, and they're you're in many ways affecting premature aging, where people may have years and years ahead of them
Absolutely.
if they are able to control this hormone drop off and things like that. So, can you really address it for long periods of time, or can you give like more immediate relief? What is a normal course that somebody might expect if they begin to address their issues with hormonal therapy?
Excellent. That's a wonderful question. What I'm going to tell you is that when I embark, so I do a lot of evaluating first with when I work with a particular patient. And when we get things started, most people that I work with, like 95% of people that I work with, feel better by within the first few weeks. by about the 1 month mark, they can tell they either feel a little bit better, sometimes they feel a lot better, depending on what was going on. So that's the first part. Then the second part is over the next 2 to 3 months. That's when, as I like to say, the cells in our bodies realize that they are under new management with better hormone levels flowing through our bodies. And then over time, the body gets used to it and the effects kind of settle in and it becomes a more sustained effect.
Now, you mentioned a couple of symptoms. I think it might be the right word, like fatigue and things like that, physical. But I got to tell you, most people, particularly the women I know, uh, would be more interested in knowing how the hormone therapy affects their skin, because that's
Exactly.
for most of us, that's the most visible sign of aging. It's not the most important necessarily, but it is very visible.
Right.
How does the therapy affect skin? Does it tighten your skin or make it feel better? Or
Are you
It definitely
asking,
helps.
John? Are you asking for a friend?
uh, yeah, before I get the facelift,
It definitely helps skin, hair, nails. Women definitely talk with me about that very commonly. And like you said, it's a longer term effect. So hair has like a 90-day cycle of turning over. So that takes a little bit longer for hormones to help with that. However, it's no question that when our hair gets thinner as we get older, that's definitely due to a decline in hormones. Also, one of my favorite, I love people watching. And if I'm in a group of people where I can see a mother and a daughter, I spend a lot of time kind of looking and seeing what is it that changes? What is it that we can see? So we've got the skin changes, the hair, the loss of the tissue underneath the skin, all right? So that, when you see young people that are so everything super nice and plump, a lot of doctors making a lot of money transferring fat around people's bodies, which is a temporary solution that has its own risks and side effects. But but that's definitely due to the good levels of hormones give that more youthful appearance.
now this may be a dumb question, and it may not be related, but since the hormones do affect our aging, explain to me what the gerontologist, do I have that right? The gerontology
Yes.
professionals, what are they interested in? Do they deal with hormones, or are they more interested in bones and things? Because let's face it, the widow's is it the widow's hump on your back, and people
Right.
falling down, breaking bones. That seems to be a major
Yes.
problem. I don't know at what age, maybe after 70, 75, or something like that. But it is a very big problem. So
Yeah.
how does all this relate to gerontology?
I would say the gerontologists that I know they're looking at the total person, which I do as well. And exactly a lot of things that you just mentioned. So cognitive function, so important. We all want to age well and we want to have our brain and our wits about us, right? We want to maintain balance so that we don't fall. We want to maintain good bone density. Hormones are the best treatment for that. And most people are fine to do that, but not everyone. And so there's a lot of ways to address that as well. And that's all of these are extremely important. Bone fractures, hip fractures can be devastating. The mortality rate after a hip fracture is is worse than most cancers, actually.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I'm my own personal prediction on somebody's life is based on whether they get a hip fracture, and at what age.
Exactly.
If they get a hip fracture at
Exactly.
50, they can recover. They get a hip fracture at 75, it's all over.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And if they get fractures at younger ages, we do a lot more digging and a lot more looking, see what's going on hormonally. And so absolutely the big picture is what matters. We want to, like we said, we want to age well. We want a good long lifespan, but we want our health span to go along with that.
In your
Well, as
yeah, in your practice, uh, I assume that you have patients that stretch into the 80s, perhaps even into the 90s. Your most successful patients, or in general, uh, how long can you keep people generally feeling well? I mean, we're all going to pass at some time, but are you able to help people uh, last into their 80s and 90s and have, from your standpoint, much better outcomes or living comes with your therapies? How does that work?
Yeah, Art really wants to know if when he reaches 80, he can still feel like he's 50.
Well, I have a
That's what he.
25-year rolling plan, so I need to be prepared for all of these stages of my life.
Right. So 25 years older than where you are is what is old,
Uh, well,
which
Yeah,
maybe.
I think that's good. Is that right?
Uh,
yeah.
It
It
just
keeps
it just
changing.
gets
it's
Yeah,
older.
it's
That's
on the
good.
yes. I have my sister planning my 100th birthday party, and she's a couple of years older than I
Perfect.
am, so we're ready. We need to be ready.
Love it. I love that. I love that. That's fantastic. Let's see. That was too much fun. I'm trying to remember the question that you asked me specifically.
How well can people feel into their 80s and 90s as opposed
Yes.
to not having the therapy at all?
All right. Excellent question. And I do think it's partly related to how soon people move on not feeling well. The longer people tolerate not feeling great, the number one, the longer it takes to get to feeling great. And then there's just there's more catch up to play. Okay. But once we get people feeling good, it's not hard to maintain that. All right. It does involve the hormone balance is an important part of that, but everything else is also important. What the foods that we eat, avoiding toxins in our environment, some degree of keeping active. Okay, that's not working out at one of these fitness gyms where knock yourself out on a regular basis. I'm not a big fan of those. We have to adapt that. I always say as the building gets older, it requires more maintenance.
Hmm.
Okay. All right. And but we can stay feeling good for a very long time. That's the name of the game.
yeah. And I think we all have to remember that you're not going to feel at 80. You're not going to feel as good as you did at 60. You're going to feel good for being 80, and that's okay.
No,
That's
no,
what it
no,
should.
no.
I don't know. I'll let you know when I get to 80. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And
Well, I can tell you that's the way it is,
it,
boys and girls. It's you gotta feel. Never mind. Sorry,
right.
I get carried away.
As you can tell, that we range in age from mentally 35 and mentally
Mentally,
80.
barely. Yeah, 80.
Except that
Anyway,
John,
Liz, this is great information. Thank you once again for
Pleasure.
putting it all into perspective, answering our questions, which I'm not sure are always intelligent questions, but boy, you got great answers.
anyway,
You're always welcome.
for anybody who wants to find out more about hormone therapy, please go to drlizmd.com and to see more of the videos, go to youtube.com/ celebrating act 2 and binge watch Dr. Liz. So thank you much, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Bye bye.
For more on Celebrating Act 2, visit our webpage, follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and tell your friends. Celebrating Act 2 is the user manual for the second half of your life.